Okay, so we'll continue Sefer Tehilim. We're holding Perek Tet, chapter 9. This one is a little bit of a longer chapter, the same with chapter 10, so we're going to have to split it in two. Part 1 today, part 1 next week. Lamnatzeach almut laben mizmor leDavid. It's a very interesting pasuk. There are various opinions as to what laben means. He's talking again to the conductor. He's preparing a song, Mizmor leDavid. He's said those words various times. But he uses the word here, almut, on the death of Laben. Now, when you first read through it, and most people probably who have read through it, they thought he's talking about a son, Ben. That's what first comes to one's mind. But not all the commentaries say that it's talking about his son, because the Hebrew grammar here does not fit well with the word Ben here. If it would have been a son, it should have read a little bit differently. So some want to say that it's talking about the death of an individual by the name of Laben. You know, like Lavan. So there was somebody, Laben, who was an enemy of David, or a troublemaker, one that started many battles. And it was a very big simcha. It was a very, very joyous day when he finally died. Could be, that's just one opinion, yes.
Can you dedicate this to my mom?
Yeah,
Your side?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Okay. So that is one opinion. The other opinion does say that this could be talking about Naval, another individual who had issues with David, let's just say. And Naval and Laben are the same letters. Could be. But there is an opinion that it's talking about his son, one of his children. And either one, regardless of how you understand it, the following words are a composition of David HaMelech in discussing, or in describing, I should say, the many miracles that he saw, and giving thanks to Hashem for being saved and for justice in the end winning. So if you take the whole context of the Perek, it does appear that it's not talking about necessarily his son. I mean, because otherwise why would he be so rejoicing? In other words, there's no connection here. But if it's talking about an enemy, then somehow it fits better. You see? If it's talking about the fall or the death of an enemy, then the rest follows a little bit better than if it's talking about his son. All right. He goes on to thank Hashem. And how does he thank him? With all his heart. Now, this is an interesting expression. You probably have heard it not only in English, in other languages too. I want to thank you with all my heart, right? How do you thank somebody with all your heart? Can you thank him with half your heart? What does it really mean? Did you ever think about it? What does it mean to thank somebody with all your heart? Yes, what does it mean?
It says it in Kriyat Shema also.
Oh, very good. So you caught on to it, that there's something elsewhere that says something similar. That you should love Hashem, with God, with all your heart. And even then it's a question. How many hearts? I mean, it says over there, by the way, it says levavecha, the plural, with 2 hearts. We have 2 hearts. Yeah. I guess today you can do an implant. You know? Have 2 hearts.
The backup part.
A backup, yeah. But what is 2 hearts? So the rabbis at least tell us over there that the meaning of 2 hearts is beyetzera tov ubeyetzera ra. With your good inclination, positive, and with your evil inclination. Then that brings another question. How do you love Hashem with your evil inclination? So the explanation given there is, when you think of your personal needs, you eat, you sleep, you work, these are personal needs. You should do those things for the service of Hashem. It shouldn't just be for your own satisfaction, for your own pleasure. You can love Hashem by dedicating that which we do for ourselves, for our own immediate needs, that should be so that we should be able to continue to be alive and serve God, and and be observant at all times of His commandments. So for that we want to be healthy. For that we want to be able to earn a living. So the ultimate focus should be that we do this for God, not for ourselves. So that's how you serve or love Hashem, with your Yetzer Hara as well. It's not that it's an evil inclination so much, but it's a personal interest that one has in something. It should not only be for us, it should be for Hashem. So that fits into this too, because when he says B'chol libi, that's what it really means. It means that my entire focus is dedicated for you. So when he says Odeh Hashem B'chol libi, that I'm thanking you not that I'm alive necessarily. I'm happy that I won. I'm happy that I'm alive. I'm happy that we defeated the enemy. No. As you'll see in another pasuk, his joy is focused on Hashem. I am happy for Hashem. So I'm happy with all my heart, or in this case, I'm thanking Hashem with all my heart, is that I'm devoting all my happiness here, not for myself. It's with all my heart for Hashem. Asapera kol niflotecha, and I want to talk all about his miracles. Now there are various words for miracles, and here for some reason the word niflotecha is used. Niflotecha means wonders, because there are all kinds of miracles. Some are obvious and apparent, some are related to nature. In other words, people can mistake them to be, it's just an act of nature, but in reality it's a miracle. It is not so obvious, they cannot really tell where the hand of God is involved. So when it says, I want to share with you all the hidden wonders that you may not even be aware of. At times of war, we see certain things. Of course, we see, Baruch Hashem, miracles of all kinds, but we're not always aware of all the small miracles that are concealed from us, that maybe only the generals, maybe only those who have intelligence are able to know, and they don't want people to panic, of course, and they don't reveal it, at least not during the time of war. Afterwards, it's documented, it's published in the book, all the things that you may have missed, and so forth. So here, part of what he wants to describe in his great joy, of course, in thanking Hashem, is about all the niflaot that he saw. So this is very, very special, because this, of course, is intended to strengthen people's emunah and faith, for people never to give up hope, that he saw the hand of Hashem, that he was able to see clearly miracles and Hashem's involvement in our life, not like many people think that he created the world and he left the scene. So he's seen miracles, and miracles occur all the time. And some miracles, of course, are incredible, because if the odds were against you and you were saved, so it's obvious. So that's what niflaot mean. Things that we may not be aware of that happen from time to time. Now, the rabbis tell us that it's very important to talk about miracles, especially if one experienced it himself. If one experienced it himself, whether it's a woman going through a very difficult childbirth, where during the time of the Bet HaMikdash she would also bring a sacrifice, several sacrifices. Today, even though we don't have the sacrifices, we don't have the Bet HaMikdash, we still do what's called in Hebrew a Seudat Hodaya. When one came out of a very, very difficult illness, operation, etc., he should do a Seudat Hodaya. Seudat Hodaya is a meal of thanksgiving, that's how we would call it, where he basically thanks Hashem for the miracle that has occurred with him, and what else is supposed to happen at that meal, what is supposed to happen at that event. He's supposed to talk about his miracle. Because in doing so, the Kabbalah explains when one talks about the miracle that has occurred with him, it somehow awakens the midah, the attribute of Hashem that was involved in helping him to continue to perform miracles in the future. Oh, you're thanking me? That means you're aware of it, you took notice of it. Good. That means I can continue to show you, my protection, shower you with my protection. So that is the significance of why he's saying it the way he's saying it. He's not just throwing words around. it is important to share with others what you've experienced. It strengthens their emunah, and it's a duty of the one who experienced it himself, regardless of what kind of situation he was in, to thank Hashem. Today, we have various forms of thanking Hashem. Besides the blessings that we have on a regular basis, from the moment we wake up, right? We make blessings. In shul, we make blessings, right? Before we eat, there's all kinds of blessings that we have that the rabbis wanted us to get used to relate what happens with us in life to Hashem, that everything is from God. Our food, our sustenance, right? Our life. To thank Him before we put something in our mouth, and to thank Him after we finish eating it. Different kinds of blessings. But there are two blessings that some people may not come across with too often unless they travel. One of them is agomel, which I'm sure you've heard. Agomel lechayavim tovot shegemalani kol tov. We're thankful to Hashem for having performed something good for us. Shegemalani kol tov, that in other words, He protected us on this trip, risky trip, going overseas, whether it's by boat, by plane, or by car, long distances. There's always some risk. There's always a danger of accidents of all kinds. So we don't take it for granted. We understand that these risks exist, and when we come back, we get out of it, came out of prison or whatever, say agomel. On various occasions, you say this blessing called agomel, that Hashem has performed in His kindness. He has done something good for us, even though we're chayavim, we may not deserve it. So that is in recognition of the fact that Baruch Hashem, we are safe and sound. The other blessing, which is even less common, is a tremendous miracle actually occurred. You know, when we say Gomel, nothing happened, but it could have happened. Or a person was in a very bad situation, but not immediate danger necessarily, and he came out of it. Had the person been in true danger, and a real miracle occurred to him that he got saved from the danger, there's a special blessing that you say whenever you go to that same spot, and you say Sha'asali nes b'makom hazeh. Thank you, Hashem, for having performed for me a miracle on this spot, this location. If you knew the exact place where Am Yisrael crossed the Red Sea, you would make a blessing there too for that. Well, we don't know exactly, and we're not planning to go there, right? All right, at least now. So let me share with you a quick story. I was once going from Yerushalayim to Tveria. There's several ways to go from Yerushalayim to Tveria. There is the old way, which is short but long. It uses the Bik'at HaYarden, the Jordan Valley. And basically just go straight up, you pass Bet She'an, you get to Tveria. It's about a 2-hour drive or so, give or take. It's, I say it's the short but the longer because it's not, they don't have 3 lanes. You know, it's slower, it's through the Judean desert. It's very picturesque. It's a very interesting drive. And then there's today, of course, the Kvish 6. There's the new highway that crisscrosses a good part of Israel that makes it faster, but it's a drop longer. And then you can take the traditional freeway that goes through the coast, which is even a little bit longer, but there are no tolls to pay. You know. Anyway, so there's various ways to go. So we took this route, going through the desert, and as we're passing Yericho, he stops the car. He gets out and he says, Sha'asali nes b'makom hazeh. Makes a blessing. He says, oh really? You had a miracle here? What happened? An accident? He says, no. He says it was during one of the intifadas, I think, and some Arab threw on him a Molotov cocktail. And the car started burning, caught on fire. And he immediately got out and his life was saved. Had he stayed another few seconds in the car, it would have been the end, right? So that was a real miracle, that he was able to at least get out and save his life, even though the car probably was, I don't know, damaged. So every time he tells me he passes through that spot, he stops. And of course today it's a lot safer there than it was at that particular time. And he says not blessing. So that's the halacha, that if this kind of a situation were to happen, you would make, instead of hagomel, and you would say it every single time you pass through that spot. So that's pretty much the idea of what the Melech is saying here, that I'm overjoyed, I'm happy, but he's saying esmecha. He's going to say it right now. He's going to say the word bach. Esmecha ve'elza bach azamera shimcha elyon. I'm happy in you, and eletza is from lashon alitzut or alizut, which is similar to joy, but it pertains much more to the whole experience. Elsa is a higher form of simcha that is not necessarily internal, it's more external, and it's expressed, and it is felt either through song or through dance. It's a different kind of word expressing a very merry and joyous, festive atmosphere. That's called Elsa. I'm not sure what the exact English word for that would be, but it's a basically very expressive form of happiness. And that is why he says, Azamera Shimcha Elyon, and I will sing and talk about the greatness of your name. You know, how Hashem performs miracles and how he's involved in our life. So here, because of the emphasis of the word Bach, it's like we said before, the joy is not personal so much for him, it's for Hashem. I'm happy to be your servant. I'm happy and I'm proud to be able to trust in you. And I'm happy for Hashem, because what has happened really in all these victories is there was a Kiddush Hashem. The name of Hashem was sanctified. He says that's more important to me than anything else. That the enemy was able to see that there is a God. Sheyesh din v'yesh dayan, there's a judge. That makes me more happy than anything else. So it's not so much the personal victory, the personal triumph or joy of David HaMelech. He says, Esmecha ve'elza bach, in you, because what has happened here is a tremendous sanctification of God's name, which is worth so much. Because unfortunately, what happens a lot of times in life is it appears to us, where's God? How could he allow these things to happen? Why is there so much evil and corruption? And how come they're getting away with it, all these people? All the bad guys. So when things happen the other way around, that it's so miraculously that even those who are not Jewish are able to see the Yad Hashem, and they've seen it in the many wars, in recent wars too. Then it's a tremendous esmecha ve'elza bach in you, Hashem, that there's a Kiddush Hashem. Now why is it so important, Azamera Shimcha Elyon? I was thinking, he adds the words Azamera, I will compose songs of praise about your name, your high name. It was how high you are. Perhaps the additional detail of Azamera has to do with perpetuating something. When we say Hallel during the Chagim, when we do certain things during the holidays, we're basically not only reminiscing something from the past, we're talking about something that we want the future generations to remember, something that has happened a long time ago and that we're still commemorating, I guess is a good word, for commemorating something that has happened that we want to still remember. Otherwise, how many people remember the 6-day war? Incredible victory in 6 days. It was against all odds to defeat various armies and to gain so much territory. Unless you were there. I was there. I was a child. I was young then. But I remember some of it. I remember the dangers. I remember that we had to go into the bunker. Not bunker really, but how do you call it in English? The miklat. The shelter, yeah. And I remember a lot of the details. I remember that we went to the Kotel right away. It was liberated. But if you were not around then, if you were born in the 80s, you would know about it. So you read, you heard. It's not the same. It's been forgotten. It was incredible. What about those who were around 1948? My father tells me that was incredible. It was also miraculous, right? So If you live through it, it's one thing. But what if you don't? So there has to be some sort of mechanism perhaps to remember these things, to perpetuate it. Therefore I will compose words of praise and song to your name that is so elevated, that was seen, that you are above all. That's the purpose of it. Veshuv oivai achor yikashelu v'yovedu mipanecha. Whenever my enemy retreats, what I really wish is that it should not just be a retreat. There was one way of understanding this pasuk is David HaMelech says, I wish it for all the troubles to end. We all wish for troubles to end. We don't want it to come back. To just retreat, it's very nice that they retreated, they lost. But I want them to be defeated for all time. So Beshuv oivai achor, when my enemy has retreated, what I'm really asking Hashem is Yikashelu v'yovdu mipanecha, that they should stumble. Stumble, in other words, that they should make the mistakes that are necessary for them not to think of coming back. V'yovdu mipanecha, and they should be completely gone and disappear from your face. In other words, again, he's adding the word mipanecha because ultimately, in the end, you don't want them to interfere with your design for this world. Because what does evil do? Evil interferes with Hashem's real purpose of what He wants done in this world. Even though He created this. So He wants it not just for Himself, is v'yovedu mipanecha, so they should not interfere with all the good work that has to be done in this world. So He's asking in this pasuk for a complete defeat of the forces of evil. Ki asita mishpati v'dini yashavta lechiseh shofet tzedek. And now he's talking about his own. Now he's coming back to himself. He's not just talking about in general terms of what has happened so far with the Jewish nation, but also in his own personal experience, he has seen the hand of Hashem, and he's so thankful that Hashem carried out justice. Ki asita mishpati v'dini, in my judgment, in my cause. Yashavta lechiseh shofet tzedek, you sat at the throne and you judged tzedek, justice. What is he talking about here? So the commentators explain that David HaMelech himself, on his personal, in his personal life, had various challenges to his yichus, to his lineage. Oh, you're from converts, and you're from a convert that perhaps cannot join the Jewish nation. You're from Ammon. But the Sanhedrin came and said the one that was prohibited was Ammoni and not Ammonite. The males and not the females of Ammon. And Ruth, in this case a Moaviyah, was she was a female. She was a Moaviyah. She wasn't. We're not talking about Moavi. It says Ammoni v'lo Ammonite, and it says Moavi v'lo Moaviyah. Right? So it's the males that were prohibited from converting at that time. So that was one instance of where he had to deal with, and Baruch Hashem helped him out. What was the other case? Running away from Shaul HaMelech. He had to deal with Shaul HaMelech. Issues with being pursued, and his life was in danger. And then he had the incident with Bathsheba, where people could have accused him of all kinds of wrongdoings, but Hashem evaluated the whole situation differently than what human beings would have done. Hashem knows the emet, Hashem knows the truth behind our thoughts, behind what is supposed to happen, supposed to be the future, who is supposed to marry who. So the dynamics of that whole incident, called, I guess you can call it David and Bathsheba, is not so simple. A lot of people tend to read through the Tanakh and interpret it, this is just a romance, typical. No, it's not. It's not so simple. If you read through what the Zohar has to say and what the Rambam tells in the Gemara, you cannot look down at what David HaMelech did as just a normal incident and a mistake of being tempted into a situation that he shouldn't have been tempted. Even though he is somewhat criticized for having done things not in the most proper way, in the end Hashem judges the whole situation, and there's a lot more than what the eye could see in that situation, a lot more. If you want to really understand what has happened, you have to go down, you have to study in depth a little bit more who is Bathsheba, that she was really meant for him. She was destined for David HaMelech at some point to marry, a soulmate. So if that's the case, it should not be judged in the same way somebody else would be judged for having done what he did. So in all of these situations, that David HaMelech is saying, Ki asita mishpati v'dini, you've come to defend me, to defend my cause, and you sat in the throne of being a judge, and you judged me with justice. Next pasuk, Ga'arta goyim ibata rasha shemam, machita le'olam va'ed. Here's another interesting word that you don't come across too often, Ga'arta. Ga'arta means to yell, I guess you can use the word to blow away too, But it's interesting because the connection here doesn't really make sense. Why would he want to use the word Ga'arta more than just what he uses? The next word is good enough. Ibat tarasha. You have destroyed the enemy. Shema machita. You have erased their names. L'olam va'ed, forever. So what does the word Ga'arta add over here? That you have somehow shouted at them or destroyed them. It's pretty much almost like a synonym, but there's something else perhaps here. I saw in the Yonatan ben Uziel that he uses the word nezifa to describe the verb ga'arta. Nezifa is a form of not only chastise or excommunicate or heavy rebuke. It's like, and it is related to the word to shout, because when you shout at someone, you're telling him off. Don't do that. How dare you do that? So it is a very strong rebuke. It's a form of nezifa. In other words, it's not so much excommunicated, but he's being pretty much reprimanded in a very harsh way. And why do so? I felt, in my humble opinion, I think what he's trying to say is that there are times that when Hashem clearly humbles the enemy, he teaches them a lesson. Part of humbling the enemy, part of defeating the enemy, bringing him down on his knees, is not just to make him cease from continuing to do his evil actions, but also to teach him something. Hey, I'm the boss. Don't think so highly of yourself. Don't think you're such a big shot. Titus is a famous example. If you remember the story with Titus, he thought he's such a big guy. Hashem says, who are you? I have a small creature that can defeat you. A little fly entered his brains and gave him a headache for a long, long time, and in the end he succumbed to that. The little fly. Who do you think you are? So Ga'arta Goyim, I think, has a little bit to do with not only defeating the enemy, but teaching them a lesson, shouting at them, rebuking them. So the enemy is defeated, they have been taught a lesson, hopefully. Shemam machita le'olam va'ed, and the name has been erased forever. Interesting, forever? Yeah. Well, one way to look at the word forever here is very simple. A lot of the enemies that stood up once upon a time, they're gone. Their name is forgotten from history. You remember the old Persians, the old Greeks, the old Romans? I mean, these nations don't exist anymore. The Macedonians, the Babylonians. Or he's referring to the future. Whose name will be erased? Amalek. So he's also saying, Shemam machita le'olam va'ed, there will come a time that the name of the enemies will be erased forever. However, there's something else. There's an interesting Zohar on this pasuk that says in the words le'olam va'ed, that the names are erased forever, that it's talking about certain evil people, evil individuals, who are so evil that they will not even get up on Yom Hadin. Tchiyat HaMetim, just about everybody rises. Doesn't mean everybody remains and stays forever, but they will at least rise for Yom Hadin, for the final day of judgment. The big Yom Hadin HaGadol VaNorah that the Navi, the prophet, speaks about, will come about sometime after Tchiyat HaMetim. The many will rise. And many that will rise will not necessarily stay. And they will be judged again, and then they will go back, if they don't have a merit to the world to come, they will go back to dust. There are some who are so evil they don't even get up. So it's interesting. It's another level of wickedness, of evil, that is so bad that they don't even have a chance to get up and see what the world looks like in the 21st century. When Mashiach comes. Because I guess everybody that gets up at least is able to look around, at least is able, I don't know, is able to absorb something. But those that don't even get up are so evil that their name is erased forever. So that's what the Zohar says about Le'olam Va'ed. Okay, next pasuk. Ha'oyev tammu choravot lanetzach ve'arim latash ta'avat zichram hema. This pasuk has at least two interpretations. One is that he's talking to the enemy, and he's saying, you enemy, or the enemy, tammu choravot lanetzach. Your ability to commit destruction is no longer around. No, the enemy has been destroying, has been destructive. But since he's been defeated, tammu choravot lanetzach, forever, and therefore, we won't hear from you anymore. The other interpretation is that he's saying how you have tammu choravot lanetzach, that he's been so defeated that all that has been destroyed of him will never rise, will never be rebuilt. That is to complete destruction. And of course, this can be referring to the future as well, of the enemies of God that will be completely destroyed. They will, once they're destroyed, there will be no coming back. All right, either one is fine. Either one can be understood from this pasuk. That forever either means that they're no longer able to cause any harm, or that they have been completely destroyed, and once their enemy is destroyed, they will no longer come back. There's, however, a third interpretation, which I find very interesting. It could possibly fit in here too. Tammu choravot lanetzach, there will come a time that Am Yisrael will no longer experience any more oppression, any more destruction. We've already seen the first Bet HaMikdash destroyed, the second one destroyed. From this, we understand, hopefully, B'ezrat Hashem, that there will not be a third destruction. So when Hitler was getting close to coming, to invading Israel, for those of you who know a little bit of World War II history, there was such a threat. He was coming in from Egypt. He was planning to come in from Syria. There were different plans on entering Israel. You know what that would have done to Israel, to the Jews in Israel? Hashem Yishmor. But they were stopped in El Alamein. They were stopped in Africa. What happened in Syria? My grandfather went with the Mekubalim, with the Kabbalists, to the Kibbutz of the Or HaChaim, when there was a big threat from the German army entering Israel through Syria. And they went and cried their hearts out at the grave of the Or HaChaim in Har Zatim. When my grandfather came back that day, he told his family, today the Kabbalists, like they say in Yiddish, that they broke through the tomb. In other words, they really penetrated with their prayers as much as can to pray that the Or HaChaim, the saint, should, of course, ask the Almighty for mercy. And somehow, don't ask me how, but somehow they received an answer to their prayers. I don't know how, maybe in a dream. Nothing to fear. Syria was changed to Russia. In Hebrew, the words Surya and Russia are the same letters. Surya, Syria, Russia, Russia. in the Shemaim, they switched over Syria to Russia, meaning that the enemy will now instead invade Russia. And what happened when he invaded Russia? That's where his fall began. That is when he began losing the war. He never thought of invading Russia. He actually had a treaty with them, right? If you know a little bit about World War II, Hitler and Germany and Russia, all of a sudden, out of the blue, he's crazy. He's going against Russia. He has enough enemies. You could see it's only the Shamayim. So, anyway, as all this danger was approaching Israel, Prime Minister and other important figureheads in the government got ready to leave. Some maybe even left to England. They had, passports. They asked Rabbi Herzog, the chief rabbi of them, to come along. He says, "No, I'm not coming. I'm not leaving Israel." "You're not afraid?" He says, "No." "Why not?" He says, "We don't have anywhere in the prophets any indication whatsoever that there will be a third destruction of the temple, and then another exile, another diaspora. Once the Jewish people begin to return to Eretz Israel, whenever that happens, and that began already, once that takes place, there's no going back. Mashiach is coming." So he says, we're living in that era, that the Jews are coming back. The children are coming back to their land. There's no going back. We're not leaving again. There's no destruction again. It doesn't say that anywhere. There's no source that says there's going to be another destruction. There's no such prophecy. Unfortunately, we had troubles and wars and problems, but not a churban. So, Hoyev, tamu choravot lanetzach. That's it. In other words, once the enemy is subdued, hopefully, then all destruction will cease to be. Yeah, B'ezrat Hashem, that can be also inferred from this pasuk. Ve'arim natashta avad zichram hema. In all the cities that you've abandoned, or that you've left as a waste, that you basically destroyed, avad zichram hema. Who remembers them? You think so much of what you've done. Who cares? That is already history. That is something in the past. That's not something that we, relate to anymore. That is long gone. What is not gone, however, is what he says in the next pasuk. Even though the enemy is gone, all his victories are forgotten. The cities that he destroyed are forgotten. Hashem le'olam yeshev. Hashem always sits. Hashem is always judging. Hashem is always konen la mishpat kiso. Always, he's established his throne for mishpat. What for? Because even though they're gone, their deeds have to be paid for. What they've done has to be accounted for. And Zohar says that there will come a time that all those enemies, all those kings who caused so much trouble, who died of natural causes, will come back in a reincarnation. They will become kings again, perhaps, or presidents or prime ministers, and they will fall. And they will be punished for what they did once upon a time. So, everything else is forgotten. Yeah, but Hashem D'olam Yeshev, He's around. Konen la mishpat kiso, and He's on His throne, and He's all about mishpat, all about justice. He will carry out the justice at the right time. So things are forgotten, but Hashem doesn't forget. And at some point, everything, it will be taken care of. A very important idea here. It's interesting. I don't know why the commentaries don't even mention that. I guess there's so much one can read into it, but this is really what the Zohar is saying, that there will come a time when what people thought was forgotten, what people thought, they're never going to get punished. No. What about the Nazi collaborators that died at the age of 100 and they were not caught? Don't worry. Upstairs they can't get away. Here you may be for some reason they're able to get away, for some reason we don't know. At some point it catches up with them, either in this world or that world, or both. No, nothing to worry about. Why? Because Hashem le'olam yeshev konen mishpat kiso. There's justice here. V'hu yishpot tevel b'tzedek. That's the next pasuk. Hashem will judge the entire Tevel. Tevel is another name for the universe. B'tzedek. Okay, so it's interesting to figure out why he uses the word Tevel here. Okay, that requires a little bit of thought. There's different names for the Olam, the universe, the world, the earth. In the Kabbalah, there are various, there's descriptions of various worlds within our world, different dimensions where different kinds of creatures live. And one of them is called Tevel. 7 worlds to be exact. So, what is the difference? I don't know if we should go into that right now, but let's just say that Tevel encompasses much more than what we could see with our eyes. What we see with our eyes is the physical Olam, whereas Tevel includes more than what we see. So he judges the whole Tevel b'tzedek, with justice. As I may have explained in the past, on Rosh Hashanah is Yom Adin, right? The day of justice. For who? People think for those who are alive. No, even for those who are dead. Because even those who are dead, on Rosh Hashanah, there's a judgment whether they go up, whether their neshama is elevated to the next step, until they finally come to their final resting place where there's no more advancement unless they're reincarnated, they come back. So, it could be that Tevel, I'm just thinking about it right now, it could be that Tevel accounts for that too. He judges everything, even those who are not alive. Maybe, I'm thinking. Anyway, the Mishpat of Hashem is always b'tzedek, it's always just because it's Hashem. Hashem knows the truth, Hashem knows everything. Yadin le'umim b'mesharim. He judges the nations of the world with righteousness. Okay, so there's 2 points in this pasuk. The first point is Yishpot Havel B'Tzedek. That we already know. We already know from the various other pasukim that Hashem judges with justice. He judges everyone. But what is exactly is being added over here? Tevel, as we said, encompasses the whole world. And that is where the next words are le'umim, nations. It's not just the Jewish nation, but everybody else. Many times we see a nation simply committing all kinds of grave, serious sins and not being punished. Hashem has a lot of patience. Hashem sometimes gives them a chance. For whatever reason, Hashem sometimes pushes it off. And that is why it says here, Yadin le'umim b'mesharim, with righteousness. He takes into account the good deeds too. I mean, this country has done a lot of good. That's a fact. You can't deny it. All over the world it has done a lot of good. It is, as the rabbis have called it, the United States of America, Malchut shel Chesed, a kingdom of kindness. Even though this country, as other countries, has interests, and that is where they help, it makes no difference. It has been kind, it has helped a lot, and has given money and loans and so forth. No doubt about it. There's other issues, however. There's problems, and one does not neutralize the other, one does not erase or cancel out the other. At some point one has to pay for the wrong. But the righteousness at least is taken into account, and that could extend the lease of life that a nation may have until it unfortunately has to come down like everybody else has come down, because if they're not going to conduct themselves properly, there is midat hadin. The attribute of justice is very, very strict. That's the mechanism Hashem put into creation. You can't avoid that. So that's what he's saying here, that in all this justice, you may say, well, where is the justice? Well, Yadin le'umim b'mesharim. He does consider the righteousness. He does use righteousness to consider their deeds. And he may give them an extension. There is another concept, however, over here, and that is that sometimes it appears to us that justice does not prevail. A person goes to court and the judge simply believes the other side. Or the jury really makes a mistake. Or the rabbi, if it's a Jewish court, somehow did not adjudicate the case properly. the Torah says not to worry. Ki mishpat lelokim hu. In the end, the mishpat belongs to God. Whatever Hashem wants you to have or not to have, that's what's going to happen in the end somehow. So if the judges made a mistake, Hashem is going to correct it somehow. There's no such a thing is that it will stay a mistake. Unless Hashem wants it, of course, to stay that. With Ki mishpat lelokim hu, in the end, Hashem, if necessary, He has to correct the mistakes of the judges. That is what the Torah tells the judges. Be careful in doing things right, not taking bribes, not showing favoritism. Do everything right. But we, or whoever has to go through the court, if one experiences an injustice, don't worry. In the end, Hashem is the one that will decide. And if this was completely wrong, and the guy doesn't deserve it, it will be corrected somehow later on. Why? The whole world Hashem is judges, and it's always b'tzedek. It may not be now, it will be later. Last two pesukim for tonight. V'hi Adonai misgav ladach, misgav le'itot batzara. Actually, in talking about the throne of Hashem, the commentaries do tell us that today, because justice is not always apparent, that is the meaning of why the kiseh, the throne of Hashem, is not complete. When will the throne of Hashem be complete? When Amalek will be destroyed. When Amalek will be completely erased, that is when Kis'o, his throne, will be complete. So right now, it's unfortunately the way it is. It appears to be that it's there's no justice, but there is. But when Amalek is finally destroyed, the throne will be complete. In other words, the justice will come out. So Hashem is a misgav ladach. Hashem is a support, a stronghold for the poor man. So in the Midrash, it brings down Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Let me read to you the Midrash. Very interesting Midrash. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Kol makom shenemar dal dach mach ani evyon b'Yisrael hakatuv medaber. Wherever it uses these words, that are all similar words that relate to a poor man, a destitute man, whether it's dal dach mach ani evyon, it's talking about Am Yisrael, the Jewish nation. She'en aniyut zaza mehem mishecharab Bet HaMikdash. Ever since the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed, there's poverty amongst them, a lot of poverty. All right. The question is why? The Midrash doesn't say why, but I think it's obvious. Poverty, the rabbis tell us, is good for Am Yisrael. Ya aniyut al Yisrael, it says. The poverty is something befitting to Am Yisrael, because through poverty they will be humble, and through humbleness they will pray and remember Hashem. Whereas wealth is good, but it can lead to arrogance and lead to forgetting Hashem. Could lead to assimilation, and it has. So even though we ask for prosperity, we ask for comforts, we ask for blessings, Hashem says, I know what's good for you. Leave it to me. I know how much to give you. I don't want to spoil you with too much. Otherwise, Vaishman Yeshurum Vayivat, the Pasuk says, you may rebel. So here he's telling us that the stronghold of a poor man, what does he have? Is Hashem. He has no money. He has nothing. So Hashem should be the stronghold of the poor man, and he will be. Mizgav le'itot batzara, he will be a stronghold at times of trouble. So there are times of trouble when tzedek appears not to be in control. So what's left? What's left is Hashem. So even though one is going through a hard time, going through etzara, going through troubles, and apparently there is no tzedek, just remember, in the same way, V'hi Hashem mizgav ladach, Hashem is the stronghold of the poor man. That's all he can turn to. He's also mizgav leitot batzara. At times of trouble, that's all we have. That's all we can turn to. He's our stronghold. Even though it appears like we're not getting anywhere, there's no tzedek, don't worry. If you trust in Him and believe in Him, He will be your stronghold. That's what's going to keep you sane. A lot of people, unfortunately, are struggling in all kinds of ways, and if they don't have this mizgav, they really lose it. So Hashem is a stronghold for people who are going through hard times. And finally, And by the way, poverty is good as an atonement too. It serves to atone for sins. And finally, he tells us this stronghold will serve those who truly trust in him. V'yiftechu b'cha yud'ei shmecha, those that know you, those that know of Hashem, they will trust in you. Ki lo azata doroshecha Adonai, because you have never abandoned those who seek you. So this last pasuk here is very, very powerful. Very, very, very powerful. I think this says so much about people who are happy or not happy will depend on how much bitachon they have in Hashem or don't have. A person who has real trust in Hashem can be happy regardless of his situation. One who has no bitachon, even if he has money, he's not necessarily going to be happy. Ultimately, v'yiftechu becha, only those who trust in Hashem will be able to resist any of the challenges to their faith, any kind of hardships or troubles that may come their way. And who trusts in Hashem? Yud'ei shmecha, those that know you, those that acknowledge you, those that have clarity about you, they can develop bitachon. Because a lot of people have emunah, but they don't have bitachon. To have faith is one thing. To have trust is another. And how should these people have trust? Those who know you? Because simply, Ki lo azavta doroshecha Hashem, you have never abandoned. They see you. As the pasuk says, Hinei lo yanu v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael, Hashem does not slumber, does not sleep. He's protected us. They're still around the Jewish nation. How could they survive? One sheep among 70 wolves? Hey, look around. So that's what it means. Yud'ei shmecha, those that know you. How do they know you? So what if they know? No, they've seen Ki lo azavta doroshecha Hashem, you've never abandoned them. Yes, it appears that one day that they're at the bottom. They're at the mercy of some king, of some crazy individual who's giving them a hard time. But they know that you've not abandoned them. They've seen and they've read and they've seen so much in the history of the world, the history of the Jewish nation, that they know to trust you. So this is obviously something that has to be developed at all times, has to be strengthened, because a lot of people don't have it. They lack it, or it's very, very weak. They say they believe, they're observant, they keep Shabbat, they keep everything. No bitachon b'Hashem. They don't have a true bitachon b'Hashem. True bitachon b'Hashem says, no matter what your personal situation is, no matter how difficult it is, no matter how the Jewish nation is experiencing, no matter what they're going through, you know that Hashem has not abandoned us. Hashem is still there, even though it may be difficult to see. How could it be? Why is this happening? It's not such a good idea to ask so many questions. It's better to have the bitachon. Hashem is our mizgav, He's our stronghold. But in order for that to be ingrained in us, it has to be yud'ei shmecha, those that know Him, those that have seen it, have learned it, have lived it, experienced it, and therefore they can attest to that this is a fact, black and white. It's not just something, we heard about it, we learned about it in class, in school, we were told. No. We know it as a fact. And what is that fact? Ki lo azavta doroshecha Hashem, that Hashem has never abandoned us. And as a result of that, He never will either. Thank you.
Baruch.